And it's not possible not to traumatize
Nope,
your kid, is
it's
it?
not possible. Trust me, if I'd figured that out by now.
Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast, where I interview space holders from all over the world. I am your host, my name is Karolina, and I am the Connection Catalyst. Today on the show, we have Mandy Jay, a conscious parenting expert and an emotional alchemist. Welcome to the show, Mandy. How are you doing?
Thank you. I am really excited to be here and just talk all things healing with you.
Oh my God, I am super excited because, as I mentioned before we started recording, I am very curious about conscious parenting and all the beautiful, lessons that you can today share with us. Because I'm not a parent yet, but when I am, I would really love to be a conscious parent straight away. And I feel like sometimes we really can do our best in raising our children. And I don't know much about parenting because I'm not a parent, but I know a lot about inner child because you're my fellow completion process certified practitioner. And so therefore we know all about how the trauma is created in the childhood, and so we know how the child's mind operates. So thanks to this work that we are doing with the childhood traumas, it's actually very amazing to understand where it all comes from and how it is possible that we have all these programs in our mind. And so at first I would love to ask you, how was your journey from when you decided that you're going to do what you're doing right now up to now? What was exactly the trigger that made you feel like, okay, I want to be a coach, I want to be a healer, I want to help parents? What was your journey? Please share with
I
us.
love this question. Well, I've had a few different awakenings. The first was in 2010 when I gained 60 pounds back for like the third time, and I was really trapped in the diet binge cycle for 10 years. And so I woke up with that experience and began dabbling in like self-help books and things like that. So that's when I kind of went inward. And then in 2018, my partner at the time and we lost our home in the campfire in California. Our house burned down. And after that, it was like, it just felt like the universe, of course, I was already in this space of self-inquiry. And so I was like, what's my lesson here? Like, I know there's a big lesson, there's a teaching here. And what I realized was that I moved through that experience with such ease because of the work I had done on myself. It was like just emotionally, it did not tank me. And I just was so resilient through the whole thing. And my daughter was 1 year old at the time. And yeah, so I just realized that it was time to start helping other people. And it was like, you can lose your life at any time. So what are you going to do with this life? That was the universe saying that to me. And so I started looking into like, okay, well, maybe I need to get certified in a modality or something. And I was kind of just on the internet, looking into different modalities and things. And I found Teal Swan. And when I found her YouTube channel, my system was so ready for her content. I had no resistance. I had no resistance to her content at all. I just soaked it all up. And when I learned about the completion process, there was just this instant soul knowing that, like, I'm supposed to be doing that. Like, my body was made for that work. And so basically, immediately I applied to completion process training and I got accepted. And within like 3 months, I was certified. And from there, I just dove into my own healing and started my business right away. So, and I was already like on the conscious parenting journey because, like I said, I had done all this work on myself. So I had found gentle parenting. I don't know if you've heard of that. Basically, gentle parenting,
No,
respectful
I haven't heard of
parenting.
it.
Yeah, it's a way of parenting, which the way I describe it is like the how-to guide of how you would parent if you weren't traumatized. And so we have all these amazing parents that like know they want to do it differently. They're trying to implement this how-to and act in ways that they would act if they weren't traumatized, but they're doing it through their trauma. They're trying to implement these strategies through their trauma. And so my passion is bridging the gap. So taking gentle parenting and healing and melding the two so that parents that are already on this journey can implement these practices with ease. Like it doesn't have to be, I'm just so passionate about letting the entire world know that it doesn't have to be that hard and that we can do this from a regulated nervous system.
Mm. That's so beautiful. I love that. I love what you shared, because I think that my belief is that everything in life can be easy, but it's only you standing on your own way if it's not. So if you're manifesting something that is really hard, that means that you have some blocks, you have some emotions, you have some beliefs that are making your life hard, but it doesn't have to be that way. And if I hear people saying like, "Oh, you have to work hard to achieve goals," I'm like, do you really? I mean, it depends on what you call hard work. Sometimes you have to put a lot of time, put a lot of energy in something, but would I call it hard work? For example, doing this podcast daily, would I call it hard work? Yeah, on one hand, because it's a big commitment, but on the other hand, it's
Yes.
awesome. So I feel like it's with everything like that, you know? You can say that, oh, parenting is hard work, but is it really? Okay, you might have to put a lot of energy into it, a lot of time into it, a lot of heart, but does it have to be hard? Does it have to be difficult? I don't think
Yes.
so. And that's why I'm really happy that I have you on my podcast, because I feel like you're going to install some cool beliefs in me about conscious parenting and easy parenting that I really would like to have as a future parent, hopefully. Right now I'm single, so maybe it's going to take me a while to be a parent. First, I have to find a partner. But I would really love to hear more about the conscious parenting, and also about how you and your journey with your healing has helped you be more conscious in your parenting style. Because I would guess that when you are looking into your inner child and you know how you acted as a child and you programmed yourself, or you were programmed actually from the external world, then it's easier for you to actually understand what is going on in your kid's mind or body or spirit as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to speak into that a little bit. The more I heal, the more I see that it's really about having a regulated nervous system. And like when you say it helps you understand, it does. And what it helps you do even more is ground into the present moment with your child. And so you're not trying to like understand from a mental place anymore. You just are responding to an emotion that's there in the present moment. And you're with your child and you're moving that energy with them. And the more that we heal as well, like the more not triggered we are in the moment, because when we're triggered, when our system isn't regulated, our child becomes the external expression of the emotion we're pushing down when we're triggered. And so then what happens is they express that emotion, then we get more triggered, and then it's like this vicious cycle. And so we as a parent need to stop that cycle by regulating our own nervous system. And there's lots of ways you can do that. But doing the inner work is the most powerful way. Like with my clients, we work on the specific triggers and I help them with tools to regulate themselves in the moment as well, because that's so important too. Kind of when we get into the shadow work realm, we can get into the place of wanting to analyze our triggers. And so, like, your child triggers you, and then you'll be like, okay, where's this coming from? What's happening in me? And really, in that moment, we need to shut those voices off, breathe, come down into our root chakra, be in the present moment with our child, and then we can analyze the trigger later and go into process later, right? So that's
Hmm.
kind of,
I totally resonate with that. This is amazing. This is amazing that you're sharing this, because especially in the spiritual community, it's always like, oh, where does it come from? Oh, what can I do about it? Oh, what childhood trauma is it triggering within me? But if you are there in the present moment and your child is crying, you gotta focus your energy here and now on your child. You cannot just go into your own healing process. So
yeah.
yeah, this is beautiful what you're
And
sharing.
those stories can like further erupt the situation. Like as the parent, we need to be able to take energetic control in a loving way in the moment and be that really that masculine containment for the energy that's being expressed. So, but when we still have our triggers from childhood, that is hard, and even I still have moments where I'm not at my best, but it's about, you know, creating repair with your child when those moments happen. None of us are going to be perfect. And boy, do the moms I work with, I mean, the there is a theme of like needing to be perfect. I do not want to traumatize my child. And usually that comes from our own abandonment trauma. Like, they're going to hate me later, they're going to leave me, that kind of stuff. And so when we go into our own abandonment trauma and heal that, then we can just be there, with no agenda at all.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And it's not possible not to traumatize
Nope.
your kid, is
It's
it?
not possible. Trust me, if I'd
There
figured
is
that out
no
by
way.
now.
Like you always
Yeah, it is.
yeah, like there is no way because even if you just send your kid to school for the first time, or even if you just try to make your kid eat a vegetable for the first time and they don't want, or anything like that could be really a trigger for the kid or a trauma for a kid if the emotion is and the stress is unresolved and unexpressed. So it's impossible not to traumatize your child. So then just do your best to do it as least as
Yes.
possible and be present with the emotions of a kid, that, as you said, right? And so what are your tools that parents can use in the
Mm.
moment when they feel like they are getting triggered by their children?
Yes.
What can they do? What are your maybe three top tips
Okay, yeah.
for them?
So I use, like, for myself, I use deep breathing techniques. I use 4-7-8 breathing. So you breathe in for 4, you hold for 7, and you breathe out for 8 for the count of 8. And if you do that 3 times, it takes you out of fight or flight. Now, that can be really hard if your child is in, some big emotions or a tantrum. So, the reason I'm sharing it can be really hard is because so many parents are like, if it doesn't work, then they enter shame spirals. So I'm just going to blanket statement, do your best. But yes, 4-7-8 breathing can help. And then the other thing I do is, if I really need to, take space in a loving way. So if you felt yourself and you're in a spiral and you just are like, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do this. You feel that panic moment. So many parents are like, oh, I can't leave my child when they're in, emotional distress. And yes, of course, we don't want to do that. And if you're in a trigger, there is a way to take space in a loving way. And you can say, mom needs a minute. I need to go care for myself so that I can come back and care for you. I'll be back. I'm just going to go for a walk to the living room, you know? And yeah,
Mhm.
and the more you practice this, the easier it gets. So those would be my top 2 tips.
That's beautiful. And I feel like it works with every relationship, really, not only with your kid, but also with your partner, with your family members, with your friends. If you feel like you're overwhelmed with the amount of emotions coming to you and you know that you're going to get triggered and just, burst
Yes.
with some feelings soon, then to take your space, take your time, it's actually the best thing you can do for yourself and for this other person because you don't want to traumatize your child or your friend or your family member. You just want to come when you're more peaceful. And so many times in my last relationship or relationships, I was just going out for a walk to the forest and just shouting at trees as if this was the person who
Yes.
triggered me, and then I was able to come back as more peaceful person
Yes.
to the conversation, right? So this taking space for ourselves is so important in any relationship, I think, but I think especially with children, because we need to be at peace when we talk to
Yes.
them, because we don't want to put any negativity in them. And of course they are like
Uh-huh.
sponges, they take everything in, especially up to 7 to 10 years old. They are just taking
Yes.
anything we say, anything we feel, they're just going to take from us. So it's super important to be calm I
Yes.
guess, in these situations.
And
And so you mentioned that for
I just
yeah,
wanted to you sparked
you
something
go.
else in me that I wanted to share. And that is, when you say they're sponges, it's so true. And that's why doing this deep work is so important, because what we're actually doing is purging the trapped energy from our own body. So there's less of this trapped energy, this trapped trauma for them to sponge up, really, when you get down to the simple the simplicity of the energetics around it. And then the other tip that came
Hmm.
through that I wanted to share is, once you've done a bit of healing and you can really hold space for yourself, it can be really powerful in the moment to drop into vulnerability. I've done that with my child where I've been like, "Who I'm feeling really activated," and she's 4 now. So you have to be able to feel into like what they're capable to handle, like a younger child isn't going to be able to really take in what's happening, but an older child who's not in
Hmm.
a tantrum, you can say, I'm really feeling some big feelings come up in me, just like you have big feelings. Mommy has big feelings sometimes too. And so just give me one moment here. And then like sometimes I'll breathe and then I'll just like hold space for myself as I like move some tears out or cry. Like if you can move that energy out of yourself in the moment, you're modeling first of all to your child how to do that in within the container of a relationship, without projecting and really holding yourself in that moment. They can feel that energetically. So I think the fear is, oh no, if I cry, then I'm making my child care for me emotionally, right? Which is another trauma that we don't want our child to experience. But if you're holding yourself, and you let your child know, I'm okay, I just need to cry a little so I can move this energy out, and you're self containing, then they're witnessing your process. They're witnessing you holding yourself. That's different than you spilling your emotions out and expecting them to hold space for it. So, yeah, I wanted to just offer that as another tip.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I really can feel like what you're talking about here. And I feel like it's actually better for the child to see how to self heal in the moment. Because if you're just going with your automatic program and you just like shout or cry or whatever out of nowhere, then it also teaches the child that this is how you handle emotions. And if you can provide, as you said, this container and be very mindful of it and explain what's happening and explain that it's for healing and that there is the emotion is the energy in motion and you need to let it out of your body so that it's no longer in your body so you can heal and so on, then the child straight away gets the understanding, okay, this is how I operate with emotions. I just need to feel them, to heal them, to express them in a healthy way, contained way, and aware way. So this is beautiful. Thank you so much for
Yes.
sharing. I feel like it's super
And
valuable for everyone who listens to
yeah,
it.
and the other piece I wanted to just add to what you're saying is, um, it's really powerful for a child to see an adult have emotions. Part of the gaslight is that children, especially like if it's an only child, they're like, okay, I'm the only one expressing emotions. Like, you can't help but be programmed with, I'm crazy or there must be something wrong with me if you're not seeing the adults move emotional energy. So that's another,
Mhm.
powerful message you're sending to your child is, I have big feelings too. This is what they look like. This is how they're expressed in a healthy way, and I can feel, I've done this with my daughter a few times, and our children are just so naturally um empathetic sometimes, not always. Like, you don't wanna expect your child to empathize in that moment, but it's a beautiful thing when they do, and when I've done that, there's been moments where she's been like, "I love you, mom," and, like, you can just feel the relief in her body, right? Because she's not the only one moving the emotional energy that's trapped in the room. So it's like, "Okay, I need to help move some of this instead of just pushing my trigger down and trying to hold space for her and making her move it," right? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. It's really helpful to understand how to cope with these kind of situations. And yeah, children are just beautiful, shining beings of light. And they are, if they are young, they don't have so many societal constructs in their mindset yet to
Yes.
tell them, oh, this is not how you're supposed to act. They just come and they just hug you and they just lovely and they are just, yeah, they're amazing. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing. And
Mhm.
I wanted to ask because you said that usually when a parent is very perfectionist in terms of not wanting to traumatize their child, it comes from the abandonment wound. So do you feel like every single person in this world has some kind of abandonment wound?
Yes. Absolutely. Um,
Yeah,
no
because
doubt
this
about
is
it.
like I have a abandonment wound for sure because my dad left when I was 2 years old. But I kind of
Yes.
feel like everyone has to some degree experience it because even as we said before, like when the kid goes to school or when you leave the kid for the first time somewhere, it's
Yes.
like yeah, the kid will feel abandoned, and
Yes.
so I feel like the more you also heal your abandonment wound, the less you're kind of like putting it energetically into your child. So then it might happen that the child is not going to be as not feel as abandoned as it would if you didn't work on yourself, which brings us again to the topic of like you need to work on your stuff.
Yes.
And that's why I feel like I really I felt like even with my ex-partner, I felt like I still didn't want to have kids because I feel like, oh, I still have so much to work through within myself, that I don't want
Yes.
to put a lot of trauma into my child. But now, fast forward a few years, I'm like, okay, all the main, maybe not all of them, but a lot of the main stuff, the main triggers are kind of at peace right now. So now I can be more ready mentally and emotionally to actually raise someone else up. But of course, let's
Yes.
not forget that it might be a trap, because we don't need to fix ourselves to be a good parent, right? We don't need to
Yes.
always, like, we can strive for the best, and we can, of course, always aim for, not triggering anyone or not traumatize our children. But I feel like some people also might feel like, oh, unless I heal this or that, I cannot have kids, or I cannot have a business, or I cannot blah blah blah, whatever else the story is there. So I think we also need to remember that we are enough as we are. And we also, with things like having kids, I've heard many times that you're gonna figure it out as you go anyway, and you're
Yes.
never gonna be ready for it, really.
Exactly. Yes, and
And do
that's
you agree
exactly
with
what
that?
I was going to say is that, there is something to be said for experiencing a certain amount of readiness. Absolutely. Like when your soul knows like, okay, I'm ready now. That's really important to be in tune with that and make a choice from that place, right? And your child is still going to trigger you no matter what. Yeah, no matter what. And speaking a
Oh,
bit
that's
into the
funny.
abandonment wound, there's a piece of the abandonment wound that I feel like gets overlooked, and that is emotional abandonment. And it's like, that feeling when you're in conflict with someone and then they emotionally just they're gone. Like their give a fuck's busted. Am I allowed to cuss here? Whoops.
Oh yes, I know what you're
So,
saying. I hate this
yes,
stuff.
and when,
Ah!
that happens to toddlers all the time in the current reality we're living in. And that is so painful for a child. So painful. Um, so yeah, it's like it's more about getting yourself into a place where you're not emotionally abandoning your child on a regular basis. Like these experiences where they're going to school and things like that, if you're not emotionally abandoning them through these experiences, then that's not abandonment trauma. It's when we emotionally abandon them through the experience. So they go to school, they have an experience, they don't like it, it hurts, there's something traumatizing, and then you then abandon them by not validating their experience, by shaming them, by saying just deal with it. So that's what's most important is being able to see and be in their experience with them.
So, could you share for all these people who maybe struggle to do that, to be emotionally there for the kids, like how to speak to the kid when they are in this kind of emotional state, when they are, I don't know, throwing a tantrum or having the very difficult experience at school or anything like that? Could you give us an example of how would you frame it, and how would you speak about emotions, and about, and just to contain their emotional self
Yes.
in your parenthood? How would you speak to this kind of children?
Yes, that's a great question. And the first thing I want to say is like our own healing is so important because it's really about being there for our own emotions. Like when we learn how to do that, we can then be there for another person's emotions, right? So, like when you do the inner work, this next piece that I'm going to share with you becomes natural. It really becomes like a way of being rather than, okay, I'm going to say and do the right thing, right? So, that being said, you know, from where I'm currently at, and we're always healing, so I'm open to my own perspective shifting at any point. But from where I'm currently at, what's most important to me is being in an energy of curiosity and openness and listening, and then validating and mirroring. So that makes sense. And like when you're really attuned, you can actually see what's happening in the child's body and then mirror that back. Oh gosh, when you said that, I saw your whole body, clench up. And that makes so much sense to me. It seems like that was really scary, and like when we're there for our child, like let's say something happens at school with a friend and they're processing with us It's really about creating the safe emotional space for them to move the energy that got trapped in that moment out of their body. It's really all it is. And then once that feels complete, then you can help with offering solutions, helping them see the other child's perspective, teaching them connection skills with other human beings. But that comes after the spaciousness for them to move their own emotions and move through the trauma that happened.
Hmm. Yeah, and this is so spot on. And I feel like it's even something that I was talking about in other podcasts about just our inner child and how we react. Because I was speaking with a friend yesterday when were asking me about completion process and how to work through the emotions. And I was giving this example: if someone like a kid, for example, if they lost their dog, if their dog would die, you wouldn't just say to a kid straight away like, yeah, it's okay, we're gonna get you a new
Yes.
one. It's like, no, you gotta first stay with the
Yep.
grief and stay with the sadness and let the child feel how they're feeling. And this is a very extreme example, of
Yes.
course, but everyone has this part of us that is an inner child. So I feel like working with the inner child and working with your kid is quite similar in some ways, because you just need to be present with these feelings and release this emotional charge or give space to release for your kid, and then move on to making them feel better, giving them a toy or whatever else is there to as a process to make them more positive or higher in vibration. But first you really need to, as you said, move the
Yes.
energy. So you need to sit with it, you need to validate it, you need to be present, and you need to allow the child to feel like it's okay that the way that they
Yes. And
feel, right?
mhm.
And so thank you for sharing, because it's really really important. And I feel like, yeah, so many people don't know that.
Yes. Yes. And I
Still,
would love
I
to.
mean, people who listen to this podcast would maybe, but
Yes. Yes. I'm sure our
and
listeners are emotionally adept in many ways right now. And I love this
if they
example.
are not, then they will.
Yeah. We're all learning, right? None of us had the perfect parents, the perfect attunement, and the space like we're talking about. But I wanted to speak into this example because actually Harper just lost her dog. This just happened recently. So this is something we're
Oh.
actually navigating. And still that was like, oh gosh, probably 4 or 5 months ago now. But still from time to time, she'll well up and be like, I miss Jack, you know? And in those moments, I'll just mirror, you miss Jack. I miss him too, you know? And then just spaciousness. There's
Hmm.
nothing to fix. There's nothing to fix in that moment, you know? And she can tell me she misses Jack as many
Hmm.
times as she needs to. Like, you know, there's nothing to fix there. And, sometimes, like a couple times, I've noticed that she'll miss him in moments where she feels emotional because he was so this dog was just so there for her. I mean, a natural space holder, really, this animal was. And so I noticed that in moments where she is having big emotions, that's when she'll miss him. And so, I've in a couple instances I've said, maybe we can sit here together and feel what it would be like to hug him, you know? Do you remember what it was like to
Hmm.
hug Jack? And then she'll cry more, and then we'll just sit there together and like feel what that's like together. So yeah, I just felt called to
Oh, that's
share into that.
beautiful. This is really beautiful how aligned it is, because literally yesterday I was giving this example, and here we are having a real life example of this and how to move through it. But yeah, I feel like it's a similar thing with my last breakup. Like, I was literally sitting with my phone watching the videos and photos with my ex partner every day so that I can trigger myself and imagine hugging him and imagine how much I miss him. Because then, because I'm a very fast and intense person, and I like to do things effectively, I was like, every single day I was just triggering the hell out of myself so that I can move through the trigger as fast as possible. And I'm still missing him, of course, right now. And it's been 3.5 months now since we broke up. But I feel like I've healed a lot during this first month or two where I was constantly just giving myself these triggers. And now I don't feel as emotional when I see his picture or video from a friends posting something on Instagram anymore. I'm just feeling like, yeah, I love this person and I'm looking forward to reconnecting. And so it's very beautiful how you how you guided her to imagine hugging the dog and actually really feeling into it and going deeper, because I feel like this is the way to go. We cannot heal anything without feeling it. I believe, at least, in any method that I'm using, at least, whether it's Seal Swan's completion process or part work or even Psych K, another belief change and emotional method that I'm using, in each and single one of them, you need to somehow feel the resistance, feel the emotion. And without that, I feel like you're not moving this energy out of your body. I mean, there are probably some things you can heal without feeling it, but I feel like this is just the most powerful, the most
Yes.
spot on, and the deepest healing that you can really get if you allow yourself, if you allow for all these feelings that are coming up. And so you're an emotional alchemist, so you know all about
Yes.
it,
I
right?
agree
How
completely with
to
everything you just said. Yes.
Yeah, so this is how because this is how we alchemize, right? We are allowing this energy that is stuck to come out so that it can be replaced with something better. This is the alchemy. And so, what is your way of alchemizing? Do you have a specific, I don't know, guideline or specific ways to do this? Or, yeah, tell us a little bit more
Yes, I
about
love
it.
this question. Well, certainly the completion process. I mean, the completion process has completely radically changed my life. And when I first finished training, I was doing like two different trades with friends. So, I mean, I was doing at least a session a week, sometimes two sessions a week for like 2 years. And so I was really deep in my own processing too. And um, yeah, just and I had a plethora of triggers. My child was turning just about 2, which is when children start to assert their own boundaries and their sense of self, and that tends to be when children or when adults and parents get the most triggered by children is when they start to assert boundaries. And so I had lots to work with, and yeah, I just really dove in. Now that I have done a lot of healing in that way, I find that alchemizing energy is easier now and can happen much quicker because I am so able to access my emotions so quickly and I'm so in tune with them. Um, and so now it's really more about just feeling it. And then, like, once the emotion's fully expressed, then I'll like just invite in a guide or just God or unconditional love, sometimes Jesus or another support figure, my divine mother support figure. I just feel intuitively like, what energy do I need now? Now that this has been expressed, what energy do I need? And like intuitively, like there's always an energy that needs to come in to alchemize it. Like, okay, this, what just moved through me needs protection, or what just moved through me needs nurturing. And so that's kind of my process now intuitively with myself is like just express it, move it in whatever ways it needs to. Sometimes a memory will come up, sometimes it won't, and I'll be with my inner child. And then just inviting in those external energies to alchemize what's there. And then usually there's that emotional relief phase, right? When you invite in the higher love, it's like being held by your parent when your parent couldn't hold you, essentially. So yeah, that's kind of the way I see it. And
Mm.
also, I've been learning more about masculine and feminine energies. And like once we really start to heal and we heal the toxic masculine from our own system, like our ability to hold space for ourselves and alchemize instantly becomes just like effortless because we're not adding any meaning to the emotions that are happening. Our masculine is the unconditional loving space holder, the container, right? So in those moments when the emotions come up, I'm instantly like, okay, my masculine comes in as that container, right? So like there's less stories, there's less anything, and it's just like, okay, I need to hold space for myself. My masculine's here, and then instantly the emotion moves. So that's what I've been working on with myself recently is like healing my relationship with the masculine, my own inner masculine. And oh boy, it's been powerful. I mean, releasing like down to the depths, releasing any pressure or shoulds or have tos. There's like, it's like releasing those control paradigms within, so that you can just be,
Mm.
there's still structure, but it's like loving structure. It's not like I need to do this and this
Mm-hmm.
to succeed
Yeah.
and yeah. So,
There is a massive difference between controlling structure and loving
yes.
structure, right? And I'm also in the process of rewiring all that and just letting go of most of the things and just having structure and some preferences, but not really be so attached and so controlling about everything in
Yes.
your life. And I feel like that's why people in everyday life, or like people who are not healers and coaches who don't know how to alchemize their emotions, that's why also they don't allow themselves to
Yes.
feel, because they are in control when they suppress things,
Yes.
right? It's like, oh, I'm feeling this. Okay, I'm just gonna control it, suppress it, disown it, reject it, and that's done. And I'm back into my normal life, back into work, back into whatever else
Yes.
I'm doing there. But this is not the way. We need to contain it, but also let the feminine flow come up. And so this is beautifully said when you said that we need to be our own container for our own feminine energy. And I feel like things like completion process, these kind of methods, they can teach us how to do
Yes.
this. And it comes with practice, of course. I wasn't really good at it, 5 years ago or whatever. It had to be practice, this space holding capacity for ourselves,
Yes. It's like a
especially.
muscle.
And I feel like you can learn both ways. You can hold the space for yourself. You can also hold the space for other people, because for some people might be easier at first to hold space for others and then for themselves. For other people might be the other way around. But once you get the grasp of how it feels to hold space for yourself, it's
Yes.
amazing and it's addicting
Yes.
almost, because it's so healing when you do
Yes,
that,
because you
right?
start to
I
feel
mean, I'm
better and
laughing
better.
that it's
Yeah.
addicting, but it's, yeah, but it's really improving your life. So you want to do this all the time. And I feel like when you really dive into these kind of methods that bring you back to childhood more and more, you can really feel more. You can stop things personally from other people, because you understand that it's their childhood trauma governing them, not really them shouting at us. They're probably shouting at their mom or dad or teacher at
Yes.
school or whatever, whoever else was there to traumatize them. So yeah, I feel like this kind of work makes you so aware of yourself and of the people around you, and then you can really, yeah, stop taking things so personally as people usually
Yes.
do. And so this is the beauty of these kind of processes and this kind of work, which is
Yes.
amazing.
Yes, it is. Gosh, I am so grateful for this work and for Teal. I'm so grateful that I found her.
Me too. Me too. It's a game changer for life. It's amazing. And so I know that you're also an intuitive healer. And I wanted to ask, how does intuition help you with your parenting?
Ah, I love this. Yeah, so my intuition is mostly through clairsentience, um, and clear knowing as well. I think that's clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is clear knowing, I think. Um, and so for me, it comes down to being attuned. Like when my daughter feels something, I feel it and then I'm able to respond. So, and the more I heal myself, the more tapped in I am to my own clairsentience, because you're draining the trauma from your own system. So like now I can feel more what's mine and what's not mine. And when you drain out the things that were yours, then you become more of a mirror and you become more of a like a clear space. Does this make sense? To where like, okay, when the energy shifts, I notice it faster. So it's like before there'd be like this emotional experience, either let's say with my partner at the time or with my daughter, and then this like breakdown happens and you're like, where did it start? What happened? That kind of thing. Whereas now being like that my own energy is moving so slowly that I'm able to tap in moment to moment, it's like I'm able to catch these things before the breakdown happens, you know? So
Mm.
when my child's having an emotional experience, I feel it quicker and I'm responding quicker, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this metaphor of when you're clear, you're more of a mirror, because then you don't have so much. stuff inside of you that could be moved by other people's energy. You are just centered and present, and you can really be receptive to what other people feel. And so I love what you shared, because I feel like emotional attunement is something in any relationship, whether it's with your partner, with your child, with your friend. Emotional attunement is one of the most important factors affecting our relationships, because if we can really understand a person, and I feel like this is also a matter of understanding the word understanding, because me being a very logical person, in the past I would be like, if I understand something, I would understand it logically. So if I, for example, felt some emotion, it's like, oh yeah, I understood you felt sad, but yeah, this is only a mental understanding of naming the feeling that you felt. But understanding sadness also can be a felt experience.
Yes.
So I feel like bringing the understanding both logical, to be able to name the problem, the emotion, the whatever happened in the situation, but also being able to be attuned and understand someone emotionally, which means exactly feel how they are
Exactly.
feeling, and then being able to respond based on both understandings. Because I in some relationships, especially in couples of, for example, my friends, who one of the person is more emotional and one of the person is more logical, if the logical person comes and, yeah, I felt like this and that, and it's like, no, like you're not feeling what you're saying right now, you're just saying words, but I need to understand you emotionally. And then it's like there's this crash of perspectives, where they don't understand each other, because one is understanding emotionally and one is understanding intellectually. And then I feel like that the whole understanding is both, right? So then if you're attuned to someone, you can understand them emotionally, like feel how they are feeling, and you can also, of course, mentally understand what happened to make them feel like this. And whether it's a child or it's a partner or it's a friend, it's also always good to have this emotional attunement, because then you can really respond most accurately, because then you really can feel what this other person needs, right, in the moment, to soothe or to get better, or whatever. So yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yes.
It's really, really
I love the
powerful.
way you described that. And yeah, and then the other thing I want to add is just like that's the power too in being able to contain yourself, because when you feel safe enough to express your own emotions and hold yourself, you're giving yourself an opportunity to be seen and to be felt. It's like deep down we all just want to be felt. We want someone to feel what we're feeling. That is connection. And so when we heal, I think we have a tendency on the healing journey to blame people. They're not feeling us. But a lot of times it's us not feeling safe enough in our own body to allow ourselves to feel and be felt. So I just wanted to add that too. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and I don't think it's a lot of times. I think it's always like that. It's like
Yeah.
if we blame someone else for not doing something, it's probably because we are doing the same thing to ourselves. It's just different parts of us that we suppress and disown and rejected. But that's a
Yes.
whole big other conversation that we might have. But for today, I would like to express my gratitude for the beautiful wisdom that you shared with us, and would like to ask, where could people find you if they need some guidance when it comes to
Yeah.
parenting? What is the best way to contact you?
Well, I have a website and it's healingwithmandyjay.com. And through the website, you can find my Facebook page. The majority of my content is on my Facebook. And I also have a YouTube channel, which is not active right now, but I do have some really valuable parenting videos on there. And, even for those listening that aren't a parent, I've had people reach out and say how incredibly helpful those videos are just for their own healing journey. Because if you can look into conscious parenting and learn, like the how to's of how to treat a child in these moments, and, hear a parent talk about that, then when you're doing your own process on yourself and you meet with your inner child, you have like skills and like a reference point for what to do for yourself in that moment if you're doing processing on your own. So I've had people reach out and say that the videos have been really helpful for them in that way, people that aren't even parents. So I just wanted to offer that as a resource as well.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this and for sharing your beautiful energy and your parenthood experience. It's certainly useful for me and for sure for all the people who are listening to us right now. So thanks again for agreeing to be on the podcast because, yeah, we need people like you sharing what they know so that we can all become better people and better parents.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just this conversation has been so amazing. Amazing. So thank you so much. And good luck with your vision for this app and this social media network and your podcast. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to us, beautiful souls. It's been such a pleasure to talk to Mandy, and I feel like I'm more conscious right now when it comes to parenting, and I feel more ready to be a parent now after chatting to her. So, yeah, if you would like to find me as well and chat to me or to maybe be on the podcast, contact me on The Connection Catalyst. I'm on Instagram. You can probably find me on Facebook as well or on my website www.connection-catalyst.com. So thanks again so much and stay tuned to the next episode.